Ncuti Gatwa's comments about white mediocrity couldn't have been more insensitive if he tried. Which leads me to believe that perhaps he very much did try. In fact, I'm calling him Shooty McShoot Face from now on because he seems determined to shoot himself in the face. Also, because he's Scottish. The only question is, do you spell it like this? Or like this? So, skip ahead to this timestamp if you want to see me try to defend the indefensible. But first, we need to talk about his debut episode, The Giggle. It sucked. Kind of appropriate, really, how they give the worst Doctor, so far, the worst episodes, again, so far. The episode begins where the previous one left off, with the surprise reunion and cliffhanger with Bernard Cribbins. Now, I understand he was too ill to finish filming his scenes for this episode, which made the transition quite jarring, but considering what the episode ended up becoming, I'd say it was probably for the best that he finished his career on a high. So, right off the bat, it's established this episode's villain made the whole world descend into civil disorder by convincing everyone that they're right about everything. This is clearly a metaphor for social media, but in case there was any doubt, the episode straight up tells you this with one of the Doctor's epic speeches. No, I'm sorry. Epic preaches about how horrible and nasty we are as human beings. Oh, aren't we awful? And the next part is a direct quote. All the anger out there on the street, the lies, the righteousness, that's human, that's you. That's who you are, using your intelligence to be stupid, poisoning the world, and hating each other. You've never needed any help with that. And then he goes on to contradict himself in more ways than one, first by suggesting that some external factor is making humans act this way, and secondly by asking, can we take this satellite down? And the answer to that is absolutely not. Like, I'm just being serious for a moment here. Anti-satellite weapons are a war crime. If they are ever used, they will not just destroy the satellites they are intending to destroy. They will take down everything in orbit, including the space station, the Hubble telescope, and make it impossible to launch anything for decades. And of course, I raise this point as a bit of a space nerd, but you only need to have seen the movie Gravity to understand that space junk is a serious problem, and I feel like having the good guy in your story create thousands of pieces of space junk to solve a short-term problem has all the wrong implications, and a good sci-fi writer would have caught on to that, but Russell Davies is not. Has never been a science fiction writer who understands science on anything but the most superficial level. My nerdy gripes about the story aside, the ham-fisted analogy for what screens are doing to our mental health rings kind of hollow when the writer of the episode is a screenwriter. He's done nothing in his career but write things that keep us glued to our screens for decades. He said himself that he very much intends to write political stories, so he clearly does intend to galvanize those who agree with him with the messages on said screens, but it's okay when he does it because he really is right about everything, aren't you, Russell? And I've just realized, if this movie does exist in the Doctor Who universe, it's probably now called Navity. Oh, fuck! The episode goes from bad to worse as the next few scenes have our characters talking in front of screens. Screens, which doesn't exactly chime with the episode's message, but they're needed to convey exposition, so whatever. We're told the whole world is at stake, yet these characters have time to worry about an ableist microaggression, and then the Prime Minister admits that he doesn't care about anyone at all, which was kind of funny, but hang on. Hang on. That's not the Prime Minister. That's a white man. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is brown. It's not even the previous Prime Minister because she's not a white man either. The joke actually works better if it's about the incoming Labour Prime Minister, but you could not convince me in a month of Shabbat that Russell, the guy who uses award speeches to tell you to vote against the Tories, Davies, would ever attack Labour. Besides, I think we can see the pattern here. Isaac Newton, who is a white man we all like, gets turned into a brown man in the episode before this one. This episode has John Logie Baird's assistant portrayed as a brown man, which he almost certainly wasn't. And while he's not a historical figure, the race-swapping of the Doctor does not exactly go unnoticed. But hey, white men are of course given back the representation in the form of despicable Tory cats. But I almost forgot. They made Alex Jones a black woman. Like, the news reporter from Turn Left becomes this parody of an anti-vaxxer that is very clearly inspired by Jones, kind of like the guy in Spider-Man No Way Home, and just like the guy in Spider-Man No Way Home, she kinda has a point. I should explain that, so that they don't lose their minds, which, although that's debatable, the good guys all have these convenient mind control devices of convenience that are made by this shifty-looking alien robot who we've never seen before, and we don't know if he's trustworthy. So yeah, the Strawman Alex Jones parody has every good reason to call that out. Unlike the real Alex Jones, because, as YouTube Terms of Service would like me to remind you, the vaccines are safe and effective. Now, I've talked a lot about what makes this episode bad, but I don't want to give the impression there was nothing to like about it. By all accounts, Neil Patrick Harris as the Celestial Toymaker improves every scene he's in. My main complaint about him is that he isn't used enough. Like, this mesmerizing alternate dimension where he reigns supreme should have been more than just a temporary inconvenience for the Doctor and Donna. I haven't seen the episode he was originally in, but it's enough to know that there is continuity with a story that came out in the 60s to really amp up the stakes here. Since the Doctor defeated him last time by winning a game with him, the stakes could not be higher for whatever game he's about to play, and it's not even a hand of blackjack, it's literally just who can pick the highest card. It's established at least that the Toymaker can't cheat at games, but other than that, he is a literal trickster god. Which brings me on to the next best part of the episode, the musical number where he's lip-syncing to the Spice Girls and doing villainous things and turning his enemies into rubber balls, and the Doctor being like, "I'm sorry, they're dead." The Doctor being rife with indignation that the Toymaker doesn't use his powers for good is some spot-on characterization, possibly the last we see in this episode. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but the villain becomes a lot less intimidating when he's standing behind a giant death ray laser. Which brings us on to that scene. The fact that it got nominated for a BAFTA award is a damning indictment of the Academy. To be fair, Russell hyped this up so much beforehand that you just had to watch it live and avoid spoilers. But a plot twist aimed simply at surprising the viewer is a bad plot twist. Whether or not you consider this to be one depends on whether you think it accomplished anything else. So, the Toymaker decides to kill him so he can play his game with the next incarnation of the Doctor, which is quite a good way for it to happen. The 10th or 14th Doctor holding hands with his loved ones as they wish him goodbye is as good a send-off as we'll ever get for the character. But like many things, David Tennant just has to outstay his welcome, as what follows is not a transformation into the new Doctor, but rather the splitting into two different people, one of whom is still David Tennant, but conveniently healed of his injuries. The Toymaker did not know this was going to happen, although had he expected it, it would have been a better explanation than some Time Lord legend that had conveniently never been mentioned until now. The Doctor doesn't know about it either, but he's aware right before it happens that he needs to be pulled apart, because it's funny. Msho Face then explains to a group of surprised onlookers that he has bigenerated. He seems not the least bit surprised about this, almost as if his consciousness was just inside David Tennant waiting to bigenerate out of him, which works as an explanation, but I don't like it when fans have to come up with theories to explain basic characterization. They both then defeat the Toymaker and stick him in a box and go about their merry ways. Plural, because there are two of them now, and this bigeneration change seems to have been done purely to keep the David Tennant Doctor alive. Why? Not only that, but unlike the previous time a regeneration went wrong and created a David Tennant clone, yes, this is not even the first time a regeneration has gone wrong and created a David Tennant clone. Russell Davies, for all his claims of originality, sure does love to recycle. This one actually still has his Time Lord powers and immortality, which leads you to believe he could go on further adventures. Again, why? His character arc was already finished over 10 years ago, and hundreds of years by the Doctor's own experience. He and Donna already had a beautiful ending, a beautiful and bittersweet ending. You did not need to rewrite it so that it's perfectly happy. No one dies, not even Wilfred, not even the animals that he's hunting. He is shown settling down and retiring with the nobles when we've seen none of the character changes that would lead up to this. Not least when he has his own working TARDIS that New Rose would be more than happy to travel in, with or without the Doctor's permission. The only way this could make sense is if it's the setup for a spin-off, possibly with New Rose, but then again, there are plenty of better ways you can do this that don't involve a plot twist regeneration mishap. Have her discover the TARDIS and try to pilot it herself, and then when she panics and things goes wrong, she tries to find the Doctor, and it's the 10th Doctor at an earlier point in his timeline. Oh yeah, that's another thing. If you want spin-offs with older versions of the character, which Russell has indicated he'd quite like to do because oh yeah, this was another stupid-ass thing. Russell said in an interview that because of this bigeneration, every other Doctor survives their regeneration. I don't know if this is to be taken seriously or not. But then again, if you want to give them spin-off shows that badly, you are writing a show about fucking time travel!
Well, fucking time travel, yes?
And don't even get me started on how they end up with an extra TARDIS, because that is the most intellectually disabled part of this very special episode. This time it actually is because of the Toymaker, and Msho Face literally gets out a test your strength game hammer and hits it on the side to make it split into two, like he knew that was going to happen. This is not a serious show. This is not a serious show, and I'm going to say that as many times as it is necessary to convince you this is not a serious show. Which is fine, but the show tries to have it both ways when it plays off bigeneration as a serious character moment, the conclusion to a character arc which it has not earned. What exactly do I mean by this? Well, I'll explain what I think the show was trying to do, which is have the David Tennant Doctor retire for 1,000,000 years, or however long it takes to lose the emotional baggage, after which he fades away, his soul goes back in time to the moment of bigeneration, and he becomes Msho Face. This has been alluded to off camera, and it's the only way to make Ncuti's line about reverse rehab make sense. So we'll go with that interpretation. The problem is, why do this now? Or at all? Well, in the episode before this one, it was established for the first time, at least in this era of the show, that the Timeless Child origin story is staying. The Doctor was not from Gallifrey. They are an ethnically diverse alien refugee from another universe. which I think we all saw coming, even those who pretended not to. But we have another bombshell, which is that the Flux destroyed half the universe. That is, I cringe at the term canon, but that is now established fact in the show, which retroactively makes the Halloween fucking apocalypse the most destructive episode in Doctor Who history. Because even in previous stories where something destroyed the entire universe, it was recovered shortly afterwards. I think most people assumed that would happen in Series 13, even after they watched it, because the ending was very ambiguous. I mean, the villains were defeated, the mood was triumphant, subsequent scenes took place during daytime, hence the Earth still had a sun, and we find out rather anticlimactically after 2 years that Doctor Who did what the Marvel movies could not. The bad guys really did win that time, thus making the 13th Doctor a colossal failure both in-universe and out. And you know what? I was okay with this, as long as it was used to characterize the Doctor going forward. I mean, having Msho Face deal with the consequences of his previous incarnations, picking up the pieces of planets for which he bears some responsibility for their destruction, and finding hope amongst the ashes. It's almost a perfect metaphor for the show. At least it would have been. That Russell Davies dangles this story beat in front of us only to sweep it under the carpet with bi-generation is almost more insulting than any changes to the law. And I've heard the defenses of this storyline. I believe it was suggested this was a direct response by Russell Davies to the previous 2 showrunners making terrible things happen to the Doctor, who doesn't appear to be impacted by all of that. But of course, now that he's written by Russell Davies again, he can open up and show his emotional side. Thing is, I don't think that makes Russell's writing look better. It just makes the previous 2 showrunners look worse. And if he really wants to recontextualize that as characterization, where centuries of the Doctor's suppressed trauma comes back to him all at once, then it was really rushed and badly explained. Much as the mechanics of bi-generation itself. Oh, and another thing, how I've seen people describe Msho Face as this spiritual healer archetype, which of course is racist. But if anything, it's the other way round, because you've got sad and mopey David Tennant being the trauma holder, look it up, and doing all the healing himself in order for Msho Face to walk off happy as Larry at the end of the process. What we are supposed to believe is that this guy is older and wiser than this guy. I mean, he calls him kid at one point. I'm just not buying it. The vibe isn't there, which I imagine will not be the last time this fact is relevant. But even someone like me, I'll say it, an NMD, can appreciate it was actually kind of heartwarming that the old Doctor got to pass the torch to the new guy. And there's certainly no other way you could do that in a show about fucking time travel! I think it was even implied at one point David Tennant was able to retire because there's another Doctor out there protecting the universe, which has never happened before. Could it be that the showrunner Victorious just got so powerful that no one was able to tell him bi-generation is a bad idea that maybe could have been saved with better execution? I'm not even going to pursue the line of reasoning that it's a fetish for him, because fission is so obscure I doubt Russell even knows that a community exists for it. Because at the end of the day, he's just a writer who excels at writing the feels. He's less good at making things make sense. A story needs to make at least a bit of sense in order for those feels to be felt. And I think some people willingly gave this one a pass because they were just so used to mediocrity. Because that's what the show has been about these last few years. Mediocrity. Ncuti was not specifically talking about Doctor Who when he made his outrageous claim that white mediocrity has been celebrated. But he wouldn't have been wrong if he did. It's not escaped my notice that the last few showrunners, lead actors, core talent behind Doctor Who has been of white British descent. So let us bring to an end this age of white mediocrity and welcome a new dawn of mediocrity, but not because he's black or anything. I can't wait to review the new season, and you can't wait to watch me. Remember, to love with one heart, hate with the other. And if you really did skip to the timestamp, go back and watch the rest of the video!
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Oh, and I'm totally not mad they didn't use my idea.